No matter what pathway you're on in life, at some point you're going to come to a situation where you have to make a hard decision. It's these hard decisions that you make that can really end up determining how your life plays out. This video is about the decision-making process I've learned from studying successful people, and I hope it serves you well. We make the best decisions in life when we come to a place of balancing emotional and logical thinking, and our perspective really comes in and affects that as well. When researchers asked people on their deathbed if they had any regrets or if they would do anything differently, there was one most popular theme that occurred over and over, and when I first heard this, it really shocked me. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. These people would really be able to think about, all the dreams that were unfulfilled, or the opportunities that they didn't take, or the regrets that they have in their life, and how they spent a majority of their life living how everyone else around them expected them to, when in the end, it didn't even matter. But how does this happen? Ultimately, when you think about it, people have this regret and they come to the end of their life thinking about this because of the decisions that they made or avoided. And there's this really profound quote that says, "Your success in life will be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have." And that really showed in what these researchers discovered with how these people felt fulfilled at the end of their life, or if they died with regrets. It all came back to those uncomfortable conversations and hard decisions. I myself have been in many of these uncomfortable kind of conversations or been faced with hard decisions in the past, and like you, I often feel that overwhelming pressure to conform with what everyone else around me thinks I should do. And this pressure is very real. I don't think it goes away no matter how good you get at, making hard decisions and saying no to people and building up your self-confidence and esteem. That pressure is always going to be there, but how you deal with it and how you adapt to it, that's what's going to get better. I guess I'm making this video for selfish reasons, as more of a practical guide I can fall back onto whenever I'm faced with hard decisions in the future, and as well as a message to my younger self. I felt like I went through so much, stressing and worrying and just all this kind of overthinking hard decisions I had to make, when in the end, if I just kind of ran through this process, it would have led me to a place of mental clarity a lot easier and just helped me out so much more. So I hope that does the same for you. I've broken this decision-making process down into 4 steps that I run through every time when I'm faced with a hard decision. A lot of these ideas were inspired from a TED talk Tim Ferriss did, which is called Fear Setting, and a couple other books and articles I've read around this topic of making hard decisions. Why I am attracted to this idea of making complex things simple is because when we find ourselves in hard situations, it's very easy for us to be able to fall back on principles and simple things that we can do and apply that actually just help us kind of solve these problems that we have in our life. And that's exactly what this has been able to do for me. So I hope it does the same for you, and let's get into it. So this video is very much a practical guide in how to make hard decisions, and I'll attach a PDF in the description below that you can kind of write and follow along with, because whenever we're faced with a hard decision, the emotional side of our brain kind of kicks in too much. And what I found really effective is to kind of just, instead of thinking so much about it, actually getting it onto paper serves you so much better than just kind of sitting there and umming and ahhing and trying to figure it all out in your head. When you can kind of see it on paper and think about it logically, it balances it out and it makes it so much easier. So check it out if you want to kind of follow along with that. And I'm going to share with you some examples I've had in my own life as well. Step 1. Defining the nightmare. When you need to make a hard decision, dwelling upon it actually doesn't help, but thinking about it practically and logically does. The first step is about writing down exactly what you think is the worst case scenario that could happen if you did what you are considering to do. What are all the what ifs that appear, and what is it that you're actually so afraid of happening? Writing all of this down and getting it out of your mind and onto paper allows you to think about it more logically, which brings me to the next step. Step 2, resetting perspective. So when you look at what you wrote down as far as, your worst case scenario and this nightmare that you defined yourself, how likely is that to actually happen? When you stop thinking so irrationally and you kind of take that more logical approach of thinking what is the realistic worst case scenario that could happen, then you kind of start understanding that it's not going to be that bad. I like to think about it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being like no real impact in my life if it happened, and 10 being, you know, permanently life-changing and I'd never be able to recover from it at all. Most hard decisions that we get faced with are going to be probably around a 3 or a 4 on that scale max. Another thing that's really helpful as well is actually thinking about how quickly could I recover from this worst case scenario if it did happen. You know, if you had to, you know, not go to university or leave this job to do something that you want to be doing, you can pretty much get back to the situation that you were in pretty quickly, you know, most of the time within a couple of weeks or months, maybe 6 months max for most cases. And that does help a lot, because even if it goes terribly and I completely fail or I completely stuff up this whole thing and nothing goes as planned, at least I can get to where I am now. So I really don't have that much to lose. If I try and I fail, then at least I've tried and I can know that, hey, that wasn't a good option for me, but I'm proud of myself for kind of giving it a shot. Step 3, the benefits. So now that we've talked about the nightmare and how we could recover from that if it did happen, let's contrast that now with some of the more positive outcomes. So what good things could happen in your life if you did make this decision you've been thinking about? How I like to think about this is what positive outcome would happen even if I achieve, you know, a partial amount of success. I guess what you'll start to realize is even the partial, you know, positive outcomes start to outweigh the negative outcomes that you could easily kind of recover from. I guess at this point, I always come to a place where I'm like, man, what have I been so afraid of? You know, even if I did make this decision, I could recover from it really quickly. Even a slight positive outcome is going to be better than where I am now. And so what do I have to lose? And finally, step 4, calculating the cost of inaction. I love this quote that says, the best maths that you can do is calculating the future costs of current decisions. And that's kind of what this process allows you to do. So if we're currently making the decision to do nothing and kind of sit and dwell and overthink this whole process, this will really help you realize what that is actually costing you. Let's span this out into the future. It's either costing you something financially, physically, or emotionally. So let's use me as an example here. Let's say I continue to stay stuck with the situation that I'm in and I'm hating what I'm doing for work and it's just kind of making me feel miserable every day, but I'm just tolerating it because I'm a little bit too afraid to make a change in my life. Right now and week to week it's okay, but I started to think, you know, what was my life going to be like in 1 year from now? So I guess this really made me realize that if I don't change anything, my life is just going to keep kind of deteriorating and the cost of inaction is going to be way too much, that I need to kind of do something about this. And it really encouraged me to push myself and overcome the discomfort that I felt, even when I had to break through that surrounding pressure to conform and live my life how everyone else expected me to. I guess this kind of solidifies a very strong perspective to come from, and you don't have to justify that to anyone else when you know the truth and you know that if you don't change anything about this now, where your life is going to end up being. My final thoughts about this is, what are you waiting for? You know, we've already talked about good timing, or the right time is actually costing you something physically, emotionally, and financially. And it's just not worth it to be stuck and staying where you are right now anymore. If you are afraid and you're not doing anything about it, just admit it, just say you're afraid and keep coming back to this process until you find that inner strength and you get to that place where you can't tolerate your current situation anymore and it kind of forces you to change. It's helped me so much in my own life. I wanted to keep this very practical and so it actually serves other people around me as well. I did have so much fun kind of making and filming this video, as well as, you know, writing it all up and planning it out. It's something I really love to do and enjoy, and if you're into that and you got any value out of this, I'd love to hear it in the comments below, and subscribe if you find these kind of videos helpful and want to see more content like this. So I'll catch you in the next one, guys, and peace.